Hey everybody. Okay. This is the big test of the day, simultaneously on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook at the same time, if I have done everything correctly. And the first thing, when you're doing any kind of live streaming, confirm audio. Can you hear me? Am I coming through loud and clear? OBS says I should be, but who knows? You can never trust this stuff. And I'm sure on one of these three platforms, somebody will let me know pretty soon how that's going. Let's see. Oh, I need to start up the chat program again. Oh, look at that. There's chats. I've got floating chats. Oh, how exciting is that? Okay. So, and yep, it looks like Facebook and, what do you call it? YouTube and, let's see. Oh, and there's a Twitch person too. All right, and Journeyman88 says they can hear me just fine, loud and clear, says Boardroom Gamer and Ken. Oh, well, then the test was a success, and we can all go about our merry way, can't we? Isn't that the way it should go? Probably, but I feel like I should actually do something. When I did my test yesterday, I didn't expect anybody to show up. Now I'm actually curious to see how many people will show up. I'm also trying to figure out how to use this automated social media thing, but I just keep pushing update and it doesn't actually go out. Has this been posted to Twitter yet so that Twitter people know? No, it hasn't. All right. Well, almost a fully successful thing. I'll just go on ahead and manually tell folks in the Twitter sphere that this is going on, just in case they're curious. Boop. And, oh, you know what? Actually, I should really tell my Patreon backers because they're the ones who make it all go. And without them, where would we be? So let me just do a quick post. And I should have done all this while I was still on the loading screen, shouldn't I? That would have been the smart thing to do. But you folks are going to be very, very kind and patient while I jump through these hoops. Just a moment, alrighty? So, testing and chatting. Or charting. Chatting. So, Patreon folks now know. Twitter knows. Oh, should I go tell people on Board Game Geek? I should. But I can't do it all. I can't do it all. I am going to turn away from the social medias and now turn towards you folks. And we'll start doing some question and answers. Let's see. Now, in theory, I can just scroll this up. Yes, I can. So I'm just going to go back to wherever this started, and I'm going to look for question marks. If you have a question for Rahdo, if Rahdo runs through, I'll answer it right now, here, in front of dozens of people. Actually, how can I know how many people there are? Does this thing give me some kind of indication? 56 people right now on YouTube, and 7 people on Twitch. Again, I don't have as much of a following on Twitch. And let's see, Facebook. Does Facebook tell me? I don't know. I do not see that Facebook is telling me. Or maybe it is. I'm not certain. But, okay. I'm not here for the numbers. I'm here to talk to you folks. It seems to all be working. So, Boardroom Gamer wonders, what am I running through? I'm not running you through anything today, Board. Although, I was actually in the process of setting up Trajan, because depending on when Jen is done making glass, we might play it later today. I'm very excited about that. If not, we'll be playing it early tomorrow. Have not played Trajan for many, many years. And so, very, very stoked about that, because one of my high-level Patreon backers, that the highest level, you actually get to specify, I want you to play this game, Rahdo, or this game, or that game. And it seems like the only use those folks ever use it for is to let me and Jen go back and revisit games we haven't had to play for years, gotten a chance to play for years. So, Trajan is up next. And let's see. Oh, The Loop, you'll be seeing from me very soon. We Care, you'll be seeing from me very soon. Fort, you'll be seeing from me very soon. And Lions of Lydia. Actually, Lions of Lydia will probably be the next video that goes live. Probably tomorrow. And then the rest. So that's what's coming in the next week or so. And let's see. And I think next week there's also a video coming from Shay also. And apparently, I was curious. Yeah, I forgot to ask. So the piano music did play, correctly? The snappy, jazzy, totally royalty-free stuff. Apparently that played well. And let's see, scooching right along to more questions. DTG, and I should read all of this, but I'm just looking for question marks. Was Oscar Peterson the second piece I assume people are talking amongst themselves about that. And where is the thing to give me money? Oh, that is very kind of you. Is there not an option? Yeah, I think there is an option for that. You can do a super chat. Although, oh man, I should have set this up. Is it too late? If for anybody who wants to do a super chat for me, I'd rather you donate to the shirt I'm wearing right now. Let's see, can I do that? Can I edit that while we're actually going live? Yes, I can add a fundraiser to where are you? Alrighty. The Transgender Law Center. Boom. They do great work, and hopefully that will show up. I should have done that ahead of time. Again, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here, and let's see if anybody comes in a little bit later. I assume you won't see that now, but if you refresh the page, if you're on YouTube, you'll see that. As far as I know, there's no way to do fundraising on Facebook or Twitch. But yeah, so, yep, there it is. Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit, you can donate. So anybody on YouTube thinking, oh, I'd really like to support Rahdo by doing a super chat, please consider donating to a worthy cause instead. Although I won't say no if you'd rather donate to me. But anyway, moving right along. What is my favorite Euro? Well, I guess probably most people don't consider Pandemic to be a Euro, or Gloomhaven to be a Euro, or Shadowrun Crossfire to be Euros, because they're all cooperative games, and for some reason a lot of people think that you can't be a Euro game if you're a cooperative game. I don't get that. But if not for those, what is my number one? Oh, that's embarrassing. I've got to go check. I shouldn't have to do that. I should know my stuff as a professional, because anybody can check if they go to ranked.rahdo.com, and you will see after my three. Oh, it's Agricola. Of course, it's Agricola. Agricola is my favorite Euro, although that's a big part of that is, what do you call it? Nostalgia, because it was one of the first games we ever played back 9 or 10 or 11 years ago now when we first got into gaming. Okie doke. By the way, I'm curious. Obviously, I'm way behind on the chats. If we get a little bit later, somebody could tell me. Supposedly, this Stream.io software I'm using actually allows people on YouTube to see the posts that are coming from Twitch, and people from Facebook to see the posts that are coming from YouTube. And so everybody can be able to have multi-platform cross-communication. I don't know if that's actually working or not. I did turn it on, so it'll be interesting to see if that's actually happening. Alrighty. And let's move right along. I love the intro music. Makes me wonder, do I have any specific music we love to play when playing board games? Excellent question, Daniel. Actually, if anybody has ever heard of melodice.org, it's like melody, but dice. Melodice.org is a website where you can go there, you can type in your favorite game that you're about to play, and it will give you a playlist of nice instrumental music. Now, it really works great for popular games like Agricola or Trajan, where I'm sure if you went to Trajan, it would give you the entire soundtrack for the HBO series Rome, which of course is very appropriate. Smaller known games that maybe won't show up, but you can always, like if you're doing some sci-fi game, you can always type in a Star Wars game, and it'll give you a custom Star Wars soundtrack to go along. They don't always work, but you do have the ability to flag ones that you don't like, so it'll skip those, and we use it all the time. We actually, an old junker phone that let's see, I think Jen's mother-in-law gave to us because she was done with it. I used that hooked up to a USB speaker. And just, stream off of melodice.org. So that's what we listen to music. Good question. Brahm, did I see the Mind Management Deluxe version? Oh, well, I thought Mind Management was excellent. I have not looked into the final version at all because once I'm done filming a game, I got to move on to the next one. But I think I did see an unboxing of it, and because I really wanted to see the little tiny comic books and what those turned out, and it looks absolutely amazing. If you love, what do you call it? Hide and seek, Fury of Dracula style games, everybody. I mean, I think I said at the time when I covered it on Kickstarter, it was the best hidden movement game Jen and I had ever played. And I probably stand by that, although again, we were only playing a prototype. What newish industry trends, asks John Flea, do I notice lately, and which of them do I like the most? I would certainly say the newest, hottest trend, as typified actually most recently by Isaac Childress of Gloomhaven, is a greater awareness on the developer's part of handling their subject matter with more sensitivity when they are trying to, simulate the, I don't want to say marginalized, but, non-traditional board game fodder. Board games, certainly Euro-style games, are traditionally just set in Europe in the Renaissance or the Middle Ages, and it's just about a bunch of Europeans going about their day-to-day lives. But as time goes on and we're seeing more and more games, broaching into other cultures around the world, at first, developers are like, yeah, okay, we'll just do that. That's great. And what the heck? But as the industry, myself included, have been pushing back saying, hey, it's great that you are trying to open our eyes to a wider, more diverse, playscape. Maybe you could actually work with representatives, people from those cultures, from those communities, to add an air of authenticity. And it is becoming... it hasn't become a standard yet. It's still kind of an outlier, but it seems like with every month it's becoming more and more common, and that's awesome. My favorite miniatures board game, Vladimir, is Gloomhaven. Although I think probably some people wouldn't consider it a miniatures because it doesn't come with that many. So if you're talking about a bajillion pieces of plastic on the table, it's probably going to be Project Elite. The new Coleman or Not edition is amazing. Have I continued Etherfields? No. Next month, interestingly, Levente. It looks like at this point, most of the questions are coming from YouTube. But that's actually, I'm curious. How are we doing on, let's see. So 15 people. Hi, Twitch. It's nice to see you. Hopefully I'll be getting some questions from you after we get through all these YouTubers. It's just they outnumber you probably 5-1, I would imagine. Let's see. How are we doing over here? We are looking at 85. Yeah, 85 people versus 15. But I'm sure you Twitchers can pitch above your weight. Is that right? Is that sports phrase? I don't really know. I shouldn't even try to use sports phrases. It's a terrible mistake on my part. And let's see. And I still think I didn't see anywhere where the Facebook thing would tell me how many people are watching on Facebook. Or maybe it'll tell me afterwards. I don't know. But anyway, no. So every month I try to do full run-throughs of 6 retail games, and then 3 or 4 Kickstarter games, for new Kickstarters that are launching that month. And then Jen and I play probably another half a dozen games that we talk about in the rundown. Interestingly, for the month of June, I don't have any Kickstarters lined up. Not a single one for the entire month. So, that's great, because it means Jen and I next month can really sit down and spend some quality time with Etherfields and not just blitz through it. Because I'd like to put in a good 10-15 hours before I do an updated video. So, you can expect that coming next month in June. Alrighty. Dave says there's a little echo in the sound. Oh dear. I have to admit, this is the first time I am actually streaming with Streamlabs OBS instead of just regular OBS. So this was another test I was doing. And according to this, it should only be my microphone. My speakers are off. And YouTube, yeah, YouTube is greatly delayed. Twitch, I think, has like a 5-second delay. YouTube has like a 30-second delay. Although, that reminds me, I think there is a setting I can use in YouTube. I wonder if it'll let me change it live. Probably not. Yeah, so, but on the flip side, the nice thing about YouTube is you can pause, you can rewind, and you can play at double speed or 1.5 speed to catch up back to where you were. So all platforms have their strengths, I suppose. Alrighty, thank you, Loomis. I love the shirt too. What do I use for my card camera? How do I block the light from messing with it if it's a green screen chroma key? I have gone through, all 3 of the cameras I've got right now. Let's see. Oh, I need to go back and make sure I'm still recording. Streamlabs, there you go, it went to background. All 3 of the cameras, that one, this one you can see that's actually pointing right down, and this one that's right there off camera, they're all 3 Logitech webcams. This and this are Brios, and this one is actually recording at 4K, and then I'm downsampling it to 1080p. That one's just recording at 1080p, and then I went a bit cheap. The one that's for the green screen is a Logitech C920. You can actually go to faq.rahdo.com, and entry number 15 or number 16 lists all my equipment. So, basically, if I were to turn on the green screen right now, because I do have a ring light so that my face is a little bit brighter, I would be getting a bit of fall off, and I'd have a really hard time adjusting. But normally, when I'm in my little picture-in-picture mode, just doing a run-through, I turn that ring light off. And so, there is a pretty solid even level of shadow falling on literally this green piece of construction paper that is held down with some thumbtack so it doesn't slide around. And so I don't really get too many shadows unless when I'm putting something on here, there's a little bit of shadow, so you get a little bit of green ringing. But the reason for that is because my actual box lights are not pointing at me and the table. They are pointing at the ceiling. So they go up to the ceiling, the light then bounces down, and it hits everything much more evenly. And I find that means I don't have anywhere near as extreme, dramatic shadows that are cast all over the board and all over the green screen, which is why I get a pretty even and consistent result. I don't think I've ever seen anybody else do it. I watched lots of videos about how should you set up your lighting when I eventually got these box lights, and nobody said point at the ceiling, and I was just so frustrated because I was getting glare all over the place, and I couldn't seem to... I tried using, bipolar lenses. I put a bipolar lens so I could try to get rid of the glare, and ultimately the solution was just point the things at the ceiling and let it bounce down from the ceiling, and it works great. Okay. Tawantin Suyu, did it make it in my top 10, says Karthik Sethi. I've only played it once. I want to play it again. Right now, it is... At this point, I'm pretty sure, spoiler alerts, I am going to be recording Tawantin Suyu. I mentioned several. Tawantin Suyu is still out on the other table. I need to play it again before I film. At this point, I think it might be Dave Turczi's... No. I was about to say it's Dave Turczi's best design, but I think a lot of people would say, what about Anachrony? And I might even include, Dice Settlers is an amazing design too, but I think it's probably my favorite of his designs. We really, really like it a lot, but we've only played it once. We need to play it again to see if it's going to climb a little bit. The one problem we had, and it's interesting, this is kind of a problem that I think Tom Vassell complained about as well. The game is so overwhelming with options that it gives you while you're playing that Jen, she was kind of overwhelmed. But it was our first game, so we want to give it a second. She was actually having to use little clear discs to put on the board to try to get her head around what all her options were. So it was maybe a little overwhelming. I didn't really suffer from it, but I'm a bit more decisive than Jen. I just oh, that looks good, and then I just play by ear. So we're going to play it again, probably film it next week, and we'll see. At this point, it's not in top 10, mostly because of that concern Jen had, where it was just almost maybe a little overwhelming for her. And it doesn't make it bad. That's not a bad thing. It just means maybe it's not her favorite, and I definitely take Jen's taste into account when I'm doing my own rankings. Okay. Let's see, looking for questions. There's one. If you don't like doing the final thoughts and you don't want people to listen to your opinions and only cover games you love, then why do final thoughts? That's an excellent question, Rachel. I have on more than one occasion broached the topic of not doing final thoughts. I put it to votes amongst the people who actually back my show, the people who actually, spend me a couple of bucks a month and keep it going above all else. I asked them, what do you folks think? And it was overwhelming that they want, no matter what, especially when I started doing paid Kickstarters, and I thought, well, I really shouldn't give any subjective opinion at all. But it was universal, and at the end of the day, those are the folks on Patreon who actually keep this show going. So I'm giving them what they want. It's not. It drives me nuts that people put so much stock in my personal subjective opinion. I am always happy to see that over time, usually my run-throughs, the actual gameplay gets about twice as many views as my final thoughts, which means more people are drawing conclusions based on the run-through that they can experience. And so I take some solace in that. And but at the end of the day, the people are paying. I'm going to give them what they want. It was tricky, of course, because I think for the longest time, I took no payment for Kickstarters at all, and I was kind of like a high watermark, and it drove other board game YouTube content people nuts because they were charging and I wasn't, and publishers were saying, well, Rahdo doesn't charge, why are you charging? And then I moved back to America and had to start paying for my health care, paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month for a service that's so expensive I can't afford to use it, and we only have it in case of catastrophe. And I realized, oh, okay, Patreon's great, but, with my mom living with us and all that, I had to, switch over to paid. And that's when I was going to say, hey, I'm not going to give opinions, but my audience said, you will give opinions. And so the best I could do is, hey, every time I start giving a subjective opinion about a game that I was paid to cover in preview format, prototype, I'm always click say, please remember, folks, this was a paid Kickstarter preview, so the people will take that into account. People who are predisposed to assume that money just instantly corrupts, instantly. And as soon as a few coins come my way, I'm bought and sold. I don't think I am, but for people who feel that way, they can just know to ignore my final thoughts because the run-through is objective. There's nothing subjective about it. Alrighty, sorry, I need to get moving. All right, what level of Patreon requires you to dictate Monopoly? It's a high level, but there is a caveat. People who back at the highest level, the right-hand level, They have to pick from unfilmed.rahdo.com, which means basic, or any game from unfilmed.rahdo.com or request.rahdo.com. And that is a curated list. I've got about anywhere from 80 to 100 games on my shelves that I have not filmed. So I can pick one of those. Or if anybody's made it, whenever anybody goes to request.rahdo.com to, hey, Rahdo, I'd really like to see you play this game, and they add it to the geek list, I check. If it looks like a game that Jen and I would enjoy, I leave it so it can start accruing thumbs, so someday it'll get covered. And that also means the really high-level backers could choose it. So your real question is, Board Game Gamer, if you went to request.rahdo.com and put in, I don't know, have a little bit of fun, make it Star Wars Monopoly or something, you would then make me have to stop and think, would I do this if it got enough thumbs? In all honesty, I might, if it's the right Monopoly, because there's a lot of different versions of Monopoly out there. Oh, hello from Russia. Alrighty. Question, says John. Any particular reason why I keep older games in my collection, since I don't have time to play anything other than, well, two reasons, John. One, someday I will stop. Someday I will move on, and I still want to have all these games that I love. And two, I'm sure there's a lot of us out there that would agree, if we're being honest, that, you know what, the collection, the tangible things that I love, even though I don't get to play them, just having them. I mean, why does anybody collect stamps? You're not going to lick them and use them to mail, but yet, for generations, people have collected stamps that they're never going to use. It's nice to have collections of things that you love. And I do love these things so much. They bring me so much joy, even if I don't get to play them. And someday I will. So that's pretty much why they stick around. What type of game excites Jen the most? A Stefan Feld game, or, a Trajan. A really crunchy, meaty game where every decision you make has so many consequences with, both tactical short-term decision-making and long-term strategic issues. But at its heart, it's just really simple and clean and elegant. That's a real hallmark of Stefan Feld. While he's got these really robust games with a lot of moving parts, a lot of plates you've got to keep spinning, the core of it is so simple. Trajan is just a really simple Mancala. Okay, I'm going to move these, and then I'm going to activate where I drop. So that's what gets Jen going the most. Me too, for the most part. Although I really love a good co-op too. Jen likes co-ops. I love co-ops. Alrighty, do you think you should wait for the English version of Anno 1800? The run-through was awesome. I don't know when it's coming. I would prefer to have the English version if I could, because there's a handful of objective cards, only a few, where there's like a few German words like Jäder. Now, I know Jäder means every, so it's, 5 points for Jäder, what's it? So there's a couple little things like that. It would be nice to be able just to see those in English, but I don't regret at all getting it ahead of time. And I don't feel that I've denied myself anything. I mean, yes, I think anybody could look at Universitas and know that, oh, that's a university. So I think it's totally fine. So if, and again, I don't know when it's actually going to come. I suppose if it's going to be there in a couple weeks, I'd wait a couple weeks. I wouldn't wait a couple months though, personally. Although, of course, then you got to go and get it. Find a German online reseller like, what's that one that I really like that I used to use in Malta all the time? I can't think of it. But anyway, I would wait a couple weeks. I wouldn't wait a couple months. It's so good. Alrighty, question, says Brian. What is your favorite game that I have upgraded the components on, and what is your typical favorite component to upgrade? Well, you have to understand, I live with a glass artist who makes board game glass art. It's right there, gamerglass.art. This Q&A brought to you by gamerglass.art, which is my wife's Etsy's store where she makes and sells glass pieces. She makes specialized ones for some games like Pandemic. She makes general purpose ones that apply for anything, and we use her glass pieces all the time. So I would be a very bad and unsupportive husband if I didn't say that, Gamer Glass is by far the best accessory that anybody could use for any game. That aside, because that's an easy answer. Oh, let's see. A few years ago, was it Top Hat Gamer? The Top Shelf Gamer, which is a site that does lots of you can buy bundles of upgraded components for different games. It's a really nice system. I'm pretty sure it's Top Shelf Gamer. They actually sent me a few things so I could, do a quick run through of their wares. And I was really impressed by the Concordia kit. And Concordia is so dry. Having real little, goods that you're manipulating instead of just wooden meeples of stuff really increases the game. And it's so great to have real working doors in Gloomhaven. So those are a couple. But as a general rule, other than Jen's Glass stuff, I tend not to go out of my way to upgrade. I'm happy with what comes. Agricola says Augustus from a million years ago. Twitch is in the house. They know my favorite Euro. Well done, Augustus. Okay, can I show you the rest of the room? Oh, let's see. Well, the thing is that webcam that I'm talking to you right now is very precariously placed, and I hate bumping it because it messes stuff up. Here's what I will suggest. If you go to faq.rahdo.com, and it is entry number 15, I think, there is a link to a live stream I did, I think, late last year, where I actually took this camera off its, off its little swivel thing and just kind of gave a quick tour. So that one is out there. Go to faq.rahdo.com. I believe it's entry number 15, and you'll find a quick tour. Thanks for asking, Andres. Okie doke. Question. Sorry if I'm skipping questions that don't have question marks. I'm literally just scanning for questions. Alrighty. And that's good to know. All the posts are, that is amazing. That is so cool. I really love that. Okay. Which Kickstarter would I recommend for 2? Dice Theme Park, Vivid Memories, Ice, Mosaic, Skyline Express, and Burrow. Okay. All right. I have not played Burrow. They did actually ask if I wanted to cover that one, and I said no because if I recall, this was like over half a year ago. I passed on covering it. It looks gorgeous, and I think the game, but I think it was going to doesn't it have like a lot of blind bidding auction stuff? I think it does, and that's just something Jen and I generally don't tend to like. So I passed on that one. And Ice, I passed on. Actually, Shay was going to cover it, but then something didn't work out. Ice looks so pretty. But I suspect Ice is going to be more interesting with more players. And I suspect Buru, if I'm remembering Buru correctly, because I think it had a lot of auction-y, blind biddy stuff, those are both going to be better with more. Dice Theme Park and Vivid Memories, I don't think they suffer at all from being 2-player. Vivid Memories has a little bit with the way the pieces come off, but that is still just as tense. I'm going to say it's either Dice Theme Park or Vivid Memories are, of those ones you listed, FS, the ones that are best suited for 2-player specifically. And then at that point, you got to decide, well, do you want, it's more about, do you want an abstract, really puzzly thing, or do you want a more thematic theme park builder? They're both really good. I bet you Jen would probably pick Vivid Memories and I would pick Dice Theme Park, and I'm going to stop right there and, with the wisdom of Solomon, cut the baby in half. Okay. Is this a posting chat from Facebook? I don't know, Alan. I'm not quite sure. I don't think... let's see. It looks like mostly it's getting posts from YouTube, because, of course, that's where most people are. If I come over to Facebook, let's see. All right. I do see... I don't know if Facebook comments are showing up here, but I do see there is a list of comments. So let's take a break from this. And, right. So... Forrest asked, Forrest Bauer of Bauer's Game Corner. I consider Forrest a bit of a friend, and I think I really like his stuff. And yes, Forrest, it's free. It's restream.io, and it seems to be working really great. Okay, and then Paul Grogan. Oh, Paul Grogan of Gaming Rules was here, but then he went to bed because he's in England, as I wish I was. Okay, right, so it looks like that's it, and I'm not quite sure. You can't comment on this post right now, is apparently what people see. So, yeah, I guess Facebook people don't get to comment. That is definitely something I will have to look into, because that seems kind of unfortunate that they just have to watch and can't post. But anyway, hi, back to the big list. All right, you see the Restream bot, but is that the Facebook symbol in the chat? It's showing. Alan, that's Alan again. I do not know. As I understand it, Restream is scraping I know it's doing it for Facebook and Twitch, scraping all the comments out, and then, bot style, posting them on the other formats. I did see at one point, I saw, here's Steve Giles coming up. Steve Giles somehow posted I. And we'll get to the rest of that soon. So, it seems to be a feature of the system. Would you like to see more games with track movement similar to Kenichia's Tutankhamun? Oh, Lucas, you're going to embarrass me in front of all these people and make me acknowledge I've never played Tutankhamun. Think of another game that has the track mechanism and come back to me. Alrighty, Steve says, yes, Facebook is in the house. People can somehow, I don't know how. Oh yeah, no, so they're doing a comment and the comments do show up here. Although it looks like the comments from the other platforms don't make it into Facebook, because this isn't really like a live chat thing. It's just a comment list. So if they make comments, they show up over here. So for Facebook folks, it's a one-way thing, but still pretty cool. And hooray, I've achieved 100 messages with Restream Chat. Yay. This gamification of everything, I don't know. I'm kind of glad I got out of the video game industry before that really took off. Alrighty. Eddie, do I think the past year there's been an increase of new board gamers? Oh, there's a new, yeah, I mean, putting aside the very special circumstances of 2020, yeah, we're, increasing leaps and bounds every year. I can't imagine we're really increasing exponentially, but you know what? For every 100 people who become a new diehard board game fanatic, they probably get at least 5 of their friends or 5 or 10 of their friends to at least begrudgingly go along with them, and maybe one of those 5 or 10 becomes another, and so, yeah, I mean, it is just going to multiply as time goes on. I don't think it's unreasonable at all, Eddie, to expect that in my lifetime, well, maybe not my lifetime, I'm 52, maybe in your lifetime, that board games will have become as mainstream, zeitgeist friendly as chess or poker. I think that's definitely a possibility. And that's because things are speeding up. Alrighty. Favorite IP I would like to see in a board game? Well, the easy answer for that is being selfish and saying my IP. Siphon Filter. Or Fable. Fable 2 specifically, which was mine, or not mine. I worked with a lot of people. I was just lead designer on these. I would love a game of Brink, and but okay, and Pitfall: The Lost Expedition. Pretty much every game I've done, and Sims. Where is the official Sims board game? How have we not had this yet? Like a real proper get Stefan Dora, or a really respected designer to come up with a version of the Sims. That would be amazing. Yeah, we have Pursuit of Happiness and other cool Sim-like games, but where's the Sims board game? Let's see. I still love Star Trek, and so I'd love to. I've got my Star Trek Expeditions right up here, just off camera. Okay, I need to make sure everything's still going. Are we still going? Everything seems like right. So this does not actually give me any kind. It just says in stream. So I'm assuming. Let's see. Oh, what's this little button? Open performance window. Let's do that. Alrighty, I'm using 10% of my CPU. I'm just going 30 frames. I've dropped 0 frames, and I'm at 2600 kilobits per second. My screen quality is good. All right. I'm so used to OBS. OBS Streamlabs is a weird foreign beast to me, but I'm learning how to get to terms with it. Anyway, so I'd love to see more Star Trek stuff. Either original or any series. You pick series. I'd love to see a Star Trek's Lower Deck board game. For most of my life, Star Trek has been my favorite IP. By far. I grew up loving Star Trek and liking Star Wars. I was not the other way around. And we've got a few, but very, very few. And most of the time, Star Trek board games are all about ship-to-ship combat. And, that's something that represents, 5% of any given episode. So I want to see more games about exploration, strange new worlds, new life, new civilization, and boldly going, and less with the punchy. Please. I guess that would be my number one request, aside from my own games, obviously. Okay. Let's see. I'm glad to see that's working, Alan. Alrighty. I might have covered it already, so feel free. What are my plans for Twitch? Well, first of all, my plans are to simulstream, because why not? And just between me and you, Roog6, my subscriber count has fallen off on YouTube significantly over the last year. Ever since I started wearing, for lack of a better term, social justice warrior shirts, I still get new subscribers, but I'm getting a tiny, tiny fraction of the channel growth that I was getting a few years ago. And it seems like my drop off in growth when other channels were growing like crazy really coincides with the fact that I decided to start using my platform to just say something about the world. I'm not preaching to anybody. If you want, you could ignore my shirts. I'm not talking about this stuff. I'm just signaling my support for things that I think are important. And believe you me, I hear weekly from plenty of people who think they're in what's the Twitter meme, who think that they're at an airport terminal and they have to announce their departure. I get it. You can go. It's fine. I'm still going to do what I think is right. Still going to try to raise money for these things. Remember, if you're on YouTube, throw a couple bucks, just a donation. That'd be great. But so that's one of the reasons, and it's when I discovered, I could do this simultaneous triple stream thing. That's awesome. So, coincidentally, For the last couple of years, every month I was doing a live stream of a run through with my wife, Jen. Jen said, I've had enough. I just can't stand doing this anymore. So she said she'd really like to stop doing it. And I said, okay, that's fine, honey pie. But I really should keep on doing some kind of live stuff. And so at Christmas last year and in the new year, I did a live stream of top 10s. Top 10 of the year, preliminary, and top 10 most anticipated of 2021. And those went over very well. And then I haven't done any since. But I'm thinking maybe in the future, live top 10s. Very definitely, every month, at the end of the month, I do a roundup where I talk about all the games my wife and I played over the preceding 4 weeks. I've always done those canned. I'll probably start doing those live. And I am in discussion with some other content creators who I love to come on and do some additional stuff. In some cases, completely new stuff. Much like how last year, Rodney Smith on Watch It Played really branched out and started doing new shows and all kinds of whatnot. I'm thinking stuff like that and make them live, simul-stream them, and so you'll be seeing that kind of stuff on Twitch. And you'll be seeing me doing my roundups and maybe top 10s. Top 10s are a little bit more scary because these days I'm doing collaborative top 10s. But in theory, I don't know. So far, the live streaming seems to be working. It hasn't gone down yet. Alrighty. Welcome, DJ Mach 5 to YouTube, to Twitch. I'm new here too. Alrighty, Vladimir's back. Are there any new topics or themes I want to see approached in the industry? I get asked that question a lot. I never really have a good answer, in all honesty. My personal preference, aside from IPs I'd like to see, which came up earlier, I actually really like traditional Euro style, just, hey, look, here's a society, whether it's a medieval Italy or whether it's a Polynesian, prehistory village, whatever it is. I just like games that represent interesting cultures and societies that cast me in the role of some kind of effective middle manager whose job it is to move goods around from one place to the other to ensure that everybody is prosperous. And therefore, I win if I can do that really well. And the industry does not want for that type of topic, so I'm continually happy as long as that kind of stuff keeps coming. And glad to hear, apparently the echo went away. That might have been early on. Alrighty, what time? I'm at 2:46. Oh my gosh, I am so... Okay, let's move it. All right, could I shed some light on running people through Kickstarters? How do I approach... Castrola, go to faq.rahdo.com. I think it's entry number 7. Maybe number 8, there's an industry. Hey, I'd like you to cover my game. What do I do? There's information there at faq.rahdo.com. Okay. All right. Oh, good. So sound must have been a temporary thing. Have I read any of the Stormlight archive? No, I have not. One of the things that will happen when I stop doing Rahdo runs through once and for all is I will revert back to my high school, college, read a full novel every week, devour books like crazy. I haven't done that since my mid-20s, since I started working in the video game industry. I'd like to get back to it someday, and maybe Stormlight Archive would be a good one. Why do I think board game industry puts more and more focus on marginalized culture and entity topics? For instance, I don't see that trend in the video game industry. That's a really good question. That is a really good question. Certainly one thing is the board game industry is minuscule. It's a teensy-weensy little speck on the back of the gigantic ogre that is the video game industry. So, because of that, I think there is the opportunity for end users, for customers, to have a much more direct, to have the ear of publishers. And I think that's great. I think that's a strength of our industry. Whereas the video game industry, how often do you see top? When I was in the video game industry, the PR people kept me at arm's length, wouldn't let me interact with fans and all of that. Plus, there's just this kind of pre-established expectation because of the early modern classics. Because Reiner Knizia kept wanting to go back to ancient Egypt for whatever reason, whether he was rawing it up or tigressing and Euphrating it up, and Stefan Dora, and that's just kind of woven into the DNA of what a modern Euro is. And I think everybody's just kind of following on the footsteps. If you look at the early DNA of video games, it's Space Invaders and Pac-Man, and that kind of defined, Twitch gaming, more fantastical, fanciful stuff, and it was, in video game industry, we eventually got SimCity, and I'm sure there were some other, deeper, society simulations before that, but obviously SimCity was a big one. But that's always been kind of an offshoot. That's never been the heart and beating soul of the video game industry. Whereas I think because the board game industry was so tiny, there were a few key influential people like Reiner Knizia in the early days, and the 18xxers and those kinds of things that kind of steer, that set a course. And we're still following it, and it's allowed us to evolve in a different way. What would the board game? What percentage of my games would be replicating, run and gun shooters and platformers or whatever? If that's what Reiner Knizia decided to make his games about, I don't know. Well, I mean, we'd have a lot more Dr. Mario clones, maybe. But I think a big part of it is that's what it is. Okie doke. Let's see. Alaboom for life. All right, and All right, reflection is a great idea. Diffuse the lighting. Oh man, I am so far behind. I'm talking too much. All right, best Japanese board games, the small box games. I will admit my ignorance that sometimes, I will be honest, I tend to just lump games from Asia, whether it's Taiwan or Korea or Japan or China, all into one, and that's not cool. That's not right. Because really, the first one that popped in my head when you asked that, David, is Walking in Provence, but I'm pretty sure that's a Taiwanese design. For Japanese designs, it's interesting. When I would try, there's those Japanime games, I think. When you go to Essen and there's all of those games that are coming out and people are really excited to get them. What I've often found when I play those, I think there's kind of a cultural difference in expectations of board games in Japan specifically, and probably also in Korea. There's just less focus on two-player gaming. Often, many games, many super popular games that came out of Japan don't support two-player at all, or do a really terrible job of it. And so I don't think I've really found that many. I think that's changing over time. But if you just want to, all of East Asia under one umbrella, which is not cool, but I'll admit I've got kind of I'm a bit short-sighted here. Definitely off the top of my head, Walking in Provence is amazing. Amazing. Do I still love Cubidos? Yes, I would love to play Cubidos with you right now, Milad, if I could. Alrighty. And there's Paul. All right, going to bed. What was it? 25 minutes ago. Good night, Paul. Everybody say good night to Paul. I'm sure you all did a while ago. The haircut. Yeah, Jen cut my hair a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, and just gave it the first time in years, she gave it the buzz cut. I guess it's fine. I'm a little self-conscious about it. I like having a little bit of bangs, even if I do tend to go mad scientist. But thank you. Thank you. Morgan. Okay, question. Hey, Armor Sword. I believe I saw you yesterday. If I could pause time without the pressure of pumping out review impressions, what would be the first game I'd sink my teeth to and replay? Ooh, that's a good question. It would have been Gloomhaven, but in the run-up to Jaws of the Lion coming out, I was able to... we made some time and we actually finished the main Gloomhaven. I'd like to really burn through Jaws of the Lion. So any kind of offshoot of Gloomhaven, or all those... all those 10-chapter freebies that Isaac made. So Gloomhaven would be a big one. That's a good question. That's a really good question. Not Sleeping Gods, but I would go a little bit further back to Far and Away. Jen and I finished 2 storylines. I'd like to go back and see some of the other storylines because we really enjoyed Far and Away as well. Off the top of my head, there's a couple for you. Good question. Alrighty. His most watched video in roundups now, right? People love opinions. Yes, they do. Actually, I think my top 10 still get like maybe 10 or 15% more, but the monthly roundups are... They're huge. And, it's not only I give opinions, but I do a countdown. So I say the ones I like least to most, and people really like that. Alrighty. Keeping your games on their side so they get ruined? They look great on the shelves, but I find all the bits... Well, that's why. You don't have all the bits fall out. I'm just picking one at random. Let's see, I assume this will be set up correctly. You put them all in baggies. Then it doesn't matter what happens. Oh, and then, of course, a piece just fell out. My blue bag is a little loose. But yeah, this is the way you handle them. Throw the inserts away. Forget about all those custom molded things. A bunch of baggies where you can just put everything in individual baggies and then put them on their side is no big. Oh, by the way, somebody asked yesterday. I'm so sorry I didn't take questions, even though questions were coming in. I remember somebody asked, is it just the game in front? And as you can see, no, it's not. The nice thing about when I started doing it, one of the reasons I started putting these up here like this is because it gave me like another 30% of storage space. Because these Kallax shelves from IKEA are so deep that if I push all the games back, I've got a room for 1, maybe even 2 games in front. So yeah, all of these cubes are stuffed full now. To whoever asked that question yesterday. Going to Origins or Gen Con or any board game convention? Maybe. If Dice Tower West, no, I'm sorry, or yeah, Dice Tower 2, but specifically if Board Game Geek goes live this November, I am sure Jen and I would move heaven and earth to be there. It's probably both of our favorites. We absolutely love it, and I really like Dice Tower West in Vegas. Run by Tim Medevere. I would, those would, although obviously that wouldn't be until 2022. So the big one would probably be if Board Game Geek decides to do one in November in Dallas. Origins and Gen Con, probably not. Probably not. Okay. All right. I often lament missing living abroad. But what's my favorite thing about living in the Pacific Northwest, or just in general back in America? By far, the best thing about living in America compared to living in Europe, because I've lived in England, I've lived in Malta, and I've lived in America, is these are very consumer friendly. We live in a very consumer friendly society where, hey, you know what? If I want some ice cream at 11 o'clock at night, it's a jump in the car. It's a 3-minute drive, and I can get some ice cream, and I can get a wide variety of choices. I'm not just stuck with 4 flavors of Ben and Jerry's and some some Magnum bars, and that's it. Consumer choice and consumer availability, it's just amazing. Life is so much easier. Anytime any American complains about having to pay shipping costs for their Kickstarted Backstarter game, and live for a while in Malta, live for a while in Australia. You don't know how good you got it. So we definitely have it good. This is the best country in the world to be a consumer of goods. But that's a double-edged sword, because it obviously incentivizes consumer consumption, and that's not necessarily great. One of the things I kind of miss is that Jen and I lived kind of a more lean lifestyle when we lived overseas, whereas now we found ourselves just falling back, oh, do I want a thing? Okay, I'll just get the thing, as opposed to going without sometimes. Alrighty. Hello from Blighty. Alrighty. When Jen and I are moving back to the UK? Not for a while. Jen would like to move back as soon as she can. Although, in all honesty, we have talked about it a few times, and we're waiting to see how Brexit shakes out. I keep talking about not moving back to the United Kingdom specifically, but moving over to Ireland, because I've got a British passport. You, I assume, Shane, have a British passport. We could go live in Ireland, not Northern Ireland, but Ireland right now, and after, I think, 8 years, we could get dual citizenship and then have an EU passport. That's what I really want to do, because I value being a citizen of the EU more than of the UK, and it's just heartbreaking that that's not going to be the case anymore. And who knows, maybe things will go different this time with Scotland as well. We would both like to get back sooner than later. We both miss it terribly, but Brexit is definitely something to wait it out, to do a wait and see. And also, we have certain responsibilities here. Because Jen and I are both in our 50s, which means we have parents who are in their 70s and coming up on 80s, and we take our responsibilities there very seriously too. So I'll just keep it as that. Favorite campaign game ever played? Well, it'd be Gloomhaven. Carlos? Come on, Carlos! Alrighty. What is your favorite game with an unreasonable amount of beautiful wooden pieces? Ooh. Well, I mean, I'm sure plenty of people would argue that Agricola, which is, as we discussed earlier, my favorite Euro game, has a ridiculously unreasonable amount of wooden pieces, although not everybody would agree they're beautiful. I think wood is beautiful. So I'd probably... I'm really just not that driven by components. I never really have been. I value art more than I value components. I value gameplay more than I value either of those. Nothing really comes to mind. I'd have to think about that long and hard. It's a good question, and I apologize that I failed you, Spencer. Alrighty, you just popped in from Paperback Adventures. The video I just put up today. Sorry, I've been asked, with the original games, do you prefer paperback or hardback? Hardback was great, but both Jen and I preferred paperback. Because paperback had the Dominion style approach to deck building, where you have, a set of stuff, cards, decks that you're drawing from. So, of course, there's randomization in those decks, but whereas hardback had more of the Ascension model, if I recall correctly, where there's kind of like a flowing river and things come and go, and I prefer the Dominion. There's nothing wrong with the Ascension model, I prefer the Dominion. Plus, I only ever got a chance to play the hardback prototype, and when I played it, there was no co-op mode available yet. As I understand it, there is a co-op mode now, so I'd like to try it someday, but I really do like the paperback Pyramid Solitaire co-op game. I think it's great. So Hardback is at a disadvantage because... Oh, and the other thing about hardback too, if I recall correctly, I think it was like a little bit too forgiving. It gave you too much flexibility with there's so many wild cards you could get where you could, I've got 8 cards, I can do anything. And like, I kind of like that paperback kind of squeezed you and pushed you a little bit harder as well. So all things considered, paperback. Although, as I said in my in my run through, paperback adventures might eclipse paperback. Alrighty, recent. Okay, we're talking about. Sorry. What is the most exciting game I was left out of the Spiel des Jahres? Calico or Everdell? Oh, Calico. How could Calico not have made it? Calico. I mean, I guess maybe Calico didn't make it out in Germany. Is that the case? Did it get of the two? I mean, well, actually, Everdell, did it only just now come out? That's the tricky thing about the Spiel des Jahres because they're going by German release dates, which is their want. It does make it very, very difficult to keep track of stuff. But yeah, Calico is one of the best games of 2020 by far. It's so amazing. It's so perfect and flawless. And it's so the epitome of what Spiel des Jahres goes for. Everdell, you got a lot of cards with a lot of special powers. Considering that Spiel des Jahres is supposed to be all about family-friendly stuff, Calico, where there's no secret information, so it's easy for an experienced player to help newbie players, Calico, 7 Ways to Sunday. Did it not make the list? I think you're right. And if so, it was robbed. Alrighty, unless, of course, it doesn't come out into Germany until next year, in which case, it's all very confusing. Alrighty, are you excited about the announcement of regular size re-release of Containers? Containers does not support 2 players, Olivier, so no, I'm not. Unless they've announced, all right, I did a preview of Tutankhamun. Oh, Tutankhamun! Okay, yes, okay, I do remember that now. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Lucas, I forgot the question now that I remember Tutankhamun. I mean, there are so many Tut-themed games that they all kind of blend in. Yeah, that was the one where we're moving steps forward. And there's other games, like there's an Onirim game that does that too. The Onirim roll and move. And then I believe, isn't there a game from Oink that does that kind of track as well? That is a really nice way, a randomly generated track. It's just pleasant to see these little winding paths on the table. I mean, I guess, wasn't that game from Queen? Which again was an ancient an ancient Egyptian game. And I can't think of it now. I really liked it, but I don't see it in front of me. Too many games. I play hundreds of games every year. So if your question was, should we see more? Yeah, I think it's a great mechanism. It works so nice. And I think barely scratched the surface of what can be done with that. And yay, D, you're right with me. Live long and prosper. Infinite diversity and infinite combination, says D Red. Didn't, but I know that's what you meant. Heavy Cardboard crew are deliberating this question. What are your thoughts? What makes or breaks a game's ability to tackle a challenging theme, subject, etc.? I think it's... a big part of it is just how you approach the subject matter. How respectful you are. I mean, these days, cultural consulting is definitely a thing, and getting people on board who can help you steer clear. I don't think it's implicit that an all white developer, they don't have any people of color on their team, but they want to do a game that is set in some foreign culture. Yeah, please do. Please open our eyes to more cultures. But please just talk to the people from that culture so that you don't make gaffes. And it can only make hues to the reality of what it's trying to emulate. The better it's going to be. It will inevitably bring up new cool ideas, the connections for gameplay you might not have thought. I think that's really the number one thing. It has to be your approach. Now, there are certain things that, obviously the hot button topic is, didn't the prison architect just launched today? And one could argue that that's a game that did, I believe they got a cultural consultant from a former felon himself who now tries to design, more prisons that are more human rights friendly, let's say. But the interesting thing about that game is I looked at that game. They asked for it, and I just wasn't comfortable. That's another one we passed on covering. Nothing to do with the game. The game design from Dave Turchy looks great, kind of like a Isle of Skye taken to an 11. It looks really sharp. But the fact that they decided to approach a game about incarceration when when America has such an insane, out of control problem, with incarceration, and for them to include in that game the notion of, you could really try to reform the system. That's great. Or you could try to leverage the system and get as many points and get as rich as you can from human misery and suffering. And you know what? Personally, for me, I was uncomfortable with that. I saw that game and wish they would have themed it after, the Norwegian incarceration system, which has a 100% laser focus on rehabilitation instead of retribution. And so I think, it wasn't for me. I'm not gonna cast aspersion on anybody who's comfortable with the subject matter, but I think it's a question of just how you can approach these topics respectfully. And it's tricky. I mean, this is new, uncharted territory for everybody. So there are going to be missteps, and it's definitely in everybody's best interest to give everybody a little bit of leeway and try to say, okay, well, you didn't quite get there, but you were trying, and better luck next time, that kind of stuff. Alrighty. And then you continued, genocide, racism, colonization, etc. It's tricky. I think, yeah. What was it? Jason of Shelfside Stories. Is that right? Or Shelf Stories? Shelf Stories. Jason of Shelf Stories did a very, very good topic about an alternate way that you could do Puerto Rico. And by the way, my hat's off to Jason for not just only bemoaning the state of Puerto Rico, the game, and its kind of outdated design, but actually offering suggestions to make it better, being a positive, potential partner in making the game better. That was fantastic. And it was really interesting that he was able to keep the gameplay, but approach it from a completely different way. And what he talked about a lot in that video, about colonization specifically, is that what games often fail to do is give agency to the marginalized, and that's the big oversight. How can you bring them into the civil so you can tell their stories instead of tell a story that is at their expense? So I think it requires just looking at things through a different lens, and proceed with caution. It's tricky, and we're going to make missteps here and there. Alrighty. Let's see. Agricola, Feast for Odin, or Hallertau. Agricola. And then Hallertau, and then Feast for Odin in that order. I'm sorry. I could go deep, but I mean, geez Louise. We're so many questions. All right. Although I'm curious, how are we doing? Right. 115 people. And 24 people on Twitch. 115 on the YouTube. And still mystery numbers on Facebook, because it doesn't really tell me. And Facebook's still running, right? Yeah? Is it? I think it is. I'm assuming it is. Okay, so, right, we're just going to keep on moving. Any chance I'll be back on Alaboom soon? Probably not. I've really enjoyed my time on Alaboom quite a bit, but I'll be honest, I'm definitely enjoying my time as a avid watcher of Alaboom. My wife, Jen, was always a little bit jealous every time Wednesday night would come around and we were watching some show, and I was like, hey, you know what, I got to go get on the show, and like, do you have to do that? And she was fine with it. I mean, she's a grown-up. But, yeah. I mean, if nothing else, me not being there gives Lance a lot more freedom to do a lot more games of initials. And so, I mean, there's an upside to it as well. So, and I'm not on there, but there's some really interesting new voices that are popping up all the time. I think that's great. I do think it's good to recycle and bring fresh new voices. I mean, how many more times do you need to see me and Lance argue about The Last Jedi? So, yeah, probably no time soon. I am enjoying an extended vacation and getting my Wednesday nights back, and then just watching the show. That's the other thing too. I watched that show at 2.5 speed because Barry and Lance and most everybody else talk so slow. When they're in real life, they talk so slow. They talk my speed when I get to watch after the fact. But Alaboom for life. I love that show. We'll keep on watching. Alrighty. Always need more Star Trek. Right. Thank you, Optimus. That's very kind. Question. Says Lucas. You vaguely remember that I mentioned a while ago I was working on my own game. Is that still a thing? Yes. That game is right there. Plunderous, although it's not my game. It's being designed by a friend of mine, and over the last few years now, he has solicited feedback from me. It's a 4X style game, which means it's not a game I would ever want to play. Although I did a run through for it, so you can get a sense for what it's like. And he solicited feedback for an expansion that turns it into a cooperative game, and really going all in. So I am not officially a designer on that, but depending on how things go, there will probably be a lot in that game that came from my imagination. I don't think I could necessarily claim co-designer, especially because over the last few months, it's really gone through a lot more revisions. So yeah, I think I merit a special thanks in the rulebook. That kind of a thing. Alrighty. Have I played Fantasy Realms at 2, and if so, do I prefer Fantasy Realms or Red Rising? I've only played Fantasy Realms once at a convention And I'm pretty sure it was not at 2, but it was when I was there I found out, oh my gosh, this supports 2 players. But because it has the variance in the rule book, but it doesn't say that on Board Game Geek, so I'd always ignored the game. So it's definitely one I want to try, but I can't compare the two. I suspect I would like Red Rising more because Red Rising just has a lot more going on there. From what I recall of Fantasy Realms, although I haven't seen any of the expansions, there were just a lot more interesting powers and combos and putting stuff down and picking things up triggered like multiple chains, and you were trying to get the right sequence of things. We were both really impressed by Red Rising, but I mean. And I don't even think Jen wasn't even in that 4 or 5 player game I played of Fantasy Realms. So I do want to try it someday, just haven't ever gotten around to it. So I cannot answer your question. Okay. What kind of web app do I miss in the board game world? With my company, we're going to have a coding day. What app do I want? Oh, Castrola, I cannot give you, an unfair advantage over your coworkers. That wouldn't be cool. And also, I don't have an answer for that. I'm happy all analog. And there is one excellent scorekeeping application that I really like a lot, and it really works differently than any other one out there. It's called Board Game Buddy. I think I've got it right here on my phone. Let me find it. And it just completely eschews the way these things normally handle it, and I think that's awesome. Where is it? It is, Board Game Buddy. I like it so much I actually bought it, even though he gives it 100% away for free. But yeah, so that exists. What would I like to see? I would honestly, the number one thing I'd like to see is a more robust version of Melodice, which I mentioned earlier, because it is great to be able to have custom. The way Melodice works is it just leverages existing playlists that are on YouTube. I would like a more elaborate version of it where it lets me, that could be a starting point, but then I could mark ones and say, it would ultimately create my own local version. Of the YouTube playlist with my preferences and the ones that I didn't like removed, something like that, so that every time I fire it up, I only hear the songs I like. That would be awesome. So make it happen. Alrighty. What are my thoughts on Last Night on Earth, which is my favorite zombie game? I don't really have any thoughts about Last Night on Earth. I never played it. It's not my kind of game. My favorite zombie game is Eaten by Zombies, which is a sadly, criminally overlooked little deck builder. That it is just excellent. My favorite Stonemaier game is, Jen's would definitely be Charterstone. But yeah, Tapestry is amazing. I think I would give it to Tapestry. I know that's controversial. That's a hot take. Not everybody's crazy about Tapestry, but I'm cuckoo for Tapestry. So I think that would be my number 1, and probably Charterstone my number 2. Favorite, alrighty. Sachi and Sachi has some good 2-player games. Yeah, Hisashi Hisashi. Yeah, I mean, he is kind of the premier Japanese designer, definitely. And I mean, I know I've played several of his games. I mean, heck, Trains was awesome. Alrighty, well, I go to Game Store Board Game Convention in Portland. We went a couple of years ago. It was fine. Jen found it was not worth her time. She did not get the sales that warranted setting up, because it was so weird. They put all the vendors down in a basement that was like, you had to go through this labyrinthian maze to find. And so I don't think she particularly wants to do the show again. And we're just happy playing games at home. And it's a lot of work to drive all the way down there and then, hang out in uncomfortable chairs instead of our incredibly comfortable chairs. I mean, we are so lucky in that, our favorite people to play games with in the world live in the same house as us. So, I appreciate some people. You got to go out there. You got to get those conventions because you get access to so many more games you wouldn't, or you get access to so many more players. We've got everything we need right here in these however many walls we've got. Question. Don't mention the B word. I will not mention the B word unless I already did. From a design standpoint, what Splatter game would I pick as the most clever? I've only played a couple. And Antiquity was amazing. Here's the deal. I mentioned this recently somewhere else, I think in a Q&A on my podcast. Where's Antiquity the roll and write? Come on, publishers. You can't tell me that wouldn't be amazing. A roll and write is a way. It means, as pollution comes up, I mean, unless you want to include erasers so you could actually erase the pollution. Oh, man. I've only played a few, and Antiquity was the one we enjoyed the most, but it was far too much work, far too much upkeep. And it was that box was ridiculous. So I'd probably give it to Antiquity of the ones I played, but I haven't played very many. Most unnecessary game piece that you don't have a function but you still love? Oh. I'm sorry. You probably asked that before. I said, I really don't have a brain for remembering components. I don't have a good answer. I'm sorry, Brazilla. I'm sorry, I'd have to really think about that, and I'd have to look at a big list of games, and I'm trying to catch up with these questions. What is the new release I'm most looking forward to playing in 2021? Well, anybody can find that out, but I'll do it by going to Google and searching for Rahdo wish list, which takes you by Google to my wish list on Board Game Geek. And you will find everything I've ranked to number 1, like Dice Realms, although we probably won't get that, unfortunately. Frosthaven, Now or Never. Now or Never is probably number 1. But Kokopelli and Hamburg from Stefan Feld, yes, please. Oh, and Amsterdam, a triple threat from Stefan Feld this year. And any of the Feld games, but probably Now or Never more than anything else. Because I talked about earlier, Far and Away was so amazing. And Sleeping Gods is so amazing too. Alrighty, Calico is out since mid of April in Germany. Does that mean it came too late? Did it need more time to get into more? I don't really know. Alrighty, probably too late to be considered. Well, then maybe next year, because it deserves it. Calico is so amazing. One of the most perfect games I've played in years. Would I consider you doing audiobooks with that voice? It's amazing how often, just in my day-to-day life, if I have to talk to somebody or customer service on a phone, or I'm in a checkout line, people are constantly telling me, "Are you on radio? You have an amazing voice for radio." I get that all the time, and I have for years. It's interesting. My throat gets trashed very, very quickly. I don't think I've got the stamina for it like Eric Summerer does. I think it would be fun. If somebody wanted me to, I would certainly consider it. But I just don't know if I've got the pipes, or if I've got the staying power. It might wipe me out. The Fjord reprint, yes, I'm very happy about that. Thought we'd never get it. Very sad story with the designer who we lost far too early, and everybody thought it would never show, but it's shown. And is it Phil Walker Harding who's basically adapted the design so now it can be played by 4 players? That's all fantastic. I still have my original Fjords, and I still love it. Alrighty. How important is the theme when you and people a game is engaging gameplay? Oh, I need to go back and just make sure everything's fine again. So I keep putting the browser in front. Yeah, everything's fine. Let's just go on ahead and just double check. Yep, okay. YouTube says we're still going, right? Is that live? And is Twitch still going, amazingly? Yep, all right. Twitch still seems fine. Yep, there's a Fjords reprint. And is Facebook still going? Yep, okay. This is incredible. I often think about what 6-year-old me back in the mid-70s would think if somebody could have expelled out to him everything that would be available to us by the time I was 52. We live in obviously we have a lot of problems, but I do always keep reminding myself, we live in such a miraculous time as well. We have ancient problems that have been with us forever. But we have new science and technology that pushes us forward every day, and it's just good to remember that every once in a while. But sorry, that's neither here nor there. But can you imagine if somebody in the 70s telling you that, hey, you're going to have hundreds of people from around the world just listening to you talk on web browser? And what's a web browser? It's just incredible. Do I think we'll be seeing complete new mechanisms popping up, such as deck building? Yeah, I imagine so, but I couldn't tell you what, because if I could, we would, I'd go out and design it. I wouldn't, but I'd tell somebody else to go out and design it. Yeah, I don't think we've hit the bottom. But whatever it is, it's so far outside the realm of the way we think about games, nobody can see it coming. Have I seen The Crown? Jen loves The Crown on Netflix. I liked it. And I've liked it more as it's gotten closer and closer to modern day. Although, man, that episode about the Great Smoke, geez Louise. Anyway. Tapestry. Yes, Tapestry was the answer. I'm on. High five, wherever you are. All right, and good night, Rug. Thanks for being here. Thanks for twitching. All righty. Do I know Bruno Cathala, the designer? I don't think I thought I might have met Bruno once, maybe, but just in passing. Just how you see, say, oh, hi. But no, I've never really had any interactions with him. When I called out 5 Tribes for I know he never once balked when I called out 5 Tribes for having a really terrible tone deaf, just the way it put slavery into the game for no reason, and it was just awful. And I was the only person in the industry, as I recall, no other reviewer talked about it. And when I eventually covered it, eventually there was such a brouhaha. Although, to Days of Wonder's credit, At that time, 5 or 6 years ago, there was not the same level of enthusiasm for trying to be more sensitive about topics like this. And in fact, when I brought it up, I almost just got nothing but months of endless condemnation. But in spite of that, Days of Wonder recognized, yeah, we could have handled this better, and they changed it to the fakers instead, and that was fantastic. But anyway, I just mentioned all this to say, I mean, when I did that, I complained about two things. I complained about the just a horrific slavery in what was otherwise a charming, colorful, family-friendly game, and I also complained about the two-player design. I wasn't crazy about how it worked. It was fine. It worked, but I think it just kind of robbed some of the angst and tension of the game. And he did reply. And we did a little bit of respectful back and forth discussion talk, but I think that's it. That's as far as I've ever gone with Bruno. Alrighty. And my favorite Bruno game of all time has to be SOS Titanic. Oh my gosh, that game is so amazing. Okay. All right. I'm looking for question marks. And also, all right, do I listen to Mac Hughes? Yeah, I talked about that earlier. Melodice.com. Torn between Lost Ruins of Arnak and Late Pledges for Endless Winter. I should get both. If you like one, you will like the other. They're both excellent. They both do very, very different things. If I had to choose one, it would be Endless Winter because it's a heavier game, and I think it did a little bit more with unique card powers. But on the other hand, I am sure Lost Ruins of Arnak will get a lot of expansions. It will get a lot of love. So honestly, of the two, I really think it probably comes down to which theme do you prefer. Do you prefer more Paleolithic era fight for survival, or do you prefer more Indiana Jones swashbuckling adventure-y type stuff? That's really how you should choose. Because they're both excellent. Best games based on movie, TV, series, book. Let's go back to my rank.rahdo.com and just scroll down until I get to one. Oh, man. Oh, that'll take a while. So, I'm just going to teach you how to fish. Brazilla, go to rank.rahdo.com. You will see a list of all the games I own in order of how I rank them. Just start and scroll down until you find one. That's the one. Hey, Rahdo. Although it might be Red Rising, because that's based on a book, isn't it? I'm not sure. Let's see. Is there something newer than Red Rising? Now I'm inclined to go back. Red Rising. I'm on a different page now. Never mind. You can do it, Brazilla. I've got confidence in you. Thanks for all you do. What two mechanisms haven't been combined yet would you like to see combined in a game? My favorite mechanisms are dice drafting. Oh, hold on a second. Let me just go. I did years ago. Top 10 mechanisms, Rahdo. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to pick 2 of my 10 favorite mechanisms from that video I did in 2016. Let's see. So if my number 1 is dice drafting, and my number 2 is multi-use cards, I'm pretty sure those have been combined. Dice drafting and pool building, I'm pretty sure they're kind of the same thing. Dice activation, tiling, card drafting. I feel like there's been combinations of all of these things. Oh, I love rondels so much. Multi-use rondels. I want a multi-use rondel game. Instead of multi-use cards or dice, we see a lot of that. Where's the multi-use rondel game? Somebody get to work on that. That would be amazing. Alrighty. And I'll expect my royalty checks in the mail. Okay. Got Dale of Merchants. Oh wow. That's great. I'm glad I did not steer you wrong, Randall. Oh my gosh! I've caught up. I've done it. Trotsy 99. What's the one game I'd love to see modernized? Oh, that's a good one. Okay, I got to go back to rank.rahdo.com because I do not have the ability to just recall all the games that I love. Let's see here. Let's look at a game from 2005, an older one. Oh, Glory to Rome! Glory to Rome, of course. Not just because, I like the Heiko art, but I would like to see a more modern, I would love to see, oh my god, a Vincent Dutray or the Miko doing the art for Glory to Rome. Plus, then everybody would get to play Glory to Rome. There can be no other answer. Alrighty, and John, good night, sir. Backstage, have you found a game group to play with? There's definitely, we would have options, but we just haven't found we needed it. There was a while, 2 years ago in 2019, after we've been here for a little while, Jen was gone for a couple weeks. She actually went back to England for almost a month, now that I recall, with her family to, do a big family holiday and just left me and my mom, and I had some games to cover. And I did find some very nice folks, some local folks, to play Maracaibo with me. That's right, I played Maracaibo and filmed it without having played it with Jen, and it wasn't until she got back that she got it. So, I've got them in my back pocket if I need it, but I've got my game group lives with me. All right, and in all honesty, there were players in Malta if I needed them. All right, when am I going back to Malta? It'd be nice to visit. And Jen and I talk about that every once in a while. We think, I mean, because there was a lot of really great stuff about living in Malta. No two ways about it. But I think you never go back. Always go forward. Although Jen wants to go back to England. This is why I don't want to necessarily go back to England. At the very least, let's go to Wales, or let's go to Ireland, or let's go to Scotland instead. So, yeah, I can imagine visiting someday. But, we were there for what? Like 7 years straight? Something like that. 6 or 7 or 8 years? I don't remember now. A long time. And I feel like I still haven't gotten all the dust out of all the crevices. All that Saharan sand blowing over us all the time. What company overall do you think does the best job with rule books? That's a hard one. Is it Aaliyah? One of the coolest things that very few publishers do, and I'm pretty sure Aaliyah/Ravensburger typified this. And don't get me wrong, I mean, they make a lot of mistakes on their rules, especially the recent Feld games. But that idea of, hey, on the left half of a page, here's the really dense in detail stuff, and on the right half, here's the little summary at a glance, what you need to remember. I love that. I wish every single rule book would do that. It's amazing. But that's just a really cool feature of their rule books. I mean, obviously, the best rulebook writer in history is Vlaada Chvátil, because he does that most important thing that the rest of the industry completely ignores. He melds the thematic content of his games with his rules, and he explains the rules from a thematic perspective. There's nothing worse than a Vita Lacerda game like CO2 that explains all these really complex mechanisms that all come out of the thematic setting of the game, and yet the rulebook just dryly describes them in terms like hand size and never talks about the theme. So this is something that Vlaada Chvátil has been doing right for years now, and the rest of the industry is playing catch up. So for now, I'll give it to him, which I guess means Czech Games Edition. Although I don't remember them doing that. No, they did have some very good thematic stuff in Runes of Arnak, now that I recall, that did help. Maybe they don't do it as much as they used to, but right. Crusaders has the multi-use rondel, and I thought about Crusaders as I was mentioning it, but I mean, really, the main thing about Crusaders was reprogramming. Putting different spokes in. I'm talking about, every spoke has 3 different actions you can do on it, and you got to pick one, and or there's like a general purpose one you can do whenever you want, and then on top of that, take the Crusaders thing, and if you want, be able to reprogram them or move them around. I think that'd be really cool. Alrighty. And again, maybe it has been done. So very wrong about games. Oh, hey, man, Mike. Right. Hallertau, Praga, Merv. Which would I? Okay, if I wasn't playing Trajan tomorrow and I was forced to play one of those 3, wow, Jim, that's a tough one. Hallertau, Praga, or Merv. I would probably go Hallertau. Because we ended up we played Praga like 4 times, and I think we played Merv 3 times, and we only played No. Oh, that's right. We did play Hallertau more. Oh. You know what? Honestly, I'd probably go with Praga because Jen loves that one so much. She loves the rotating, spinny who's-a-majig. So probably Praga because it would make Jen happy. But I think for me, in my heart of hearts, I want more Hallertau time. And Modernize El Grande. Well, yeah, first step, make it a good 2-player game. First modern board game that I played would be Pandemic, and I've done a whole video about that. If you do a Google search for Rahdo first 10 games, you'll see I walk down, not just my first, but my first 10. And I tell the stories of how I got them and all kinds of stuff. What game would I like to see redone with updated rules? Oh, like the City Collection from Feld. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Oh. All right, let's go back to rank.rahdo.com. An older game that could really use a refresh rules-wise. Why can't I sort this by date? I want to sort this by date. All right, I'm going to go to Board Game Geek, and this is kind of boring for you folks. I should, at the very least, let you see this. Let's see, if I switch over to browser view, and then I tell Chrome, or to say, look at the correct Chrome window, which is this one here. Look at that Chrome window. There we go. And make that Chrome window a little bit bigger, please. Boop, 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 boop. And, all right, just make it even bigger. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Hee hee. Oh, so now I keep coming back to this, and I can help you. But then we need the chat back. Okay, so now I need to add a source. I need to add, what is it? It's media source. Window capture. I need to add a window capture. And it's the chat window, and add it, and it's in the wrong place, and now put it over there, and just make it a bit scoochy bigger, and then continue. Okay, so I need to do an advanced search on Board Game Geek, and I need to search for owned by Rahdo, get rid of expansions, and give me games that I own from 2000 to 2010, let's say. Alrighty, and then, all right, so which of these, I don't own Twilight Struggle. This is a list of everything that's in my collection. I didn't say, right. I forgot the owned part. Right, so owned by Rahdo, no expansions, 2000, 2010, go. And, okay, what could really use an update? What is not perfection of these older titles that I love so much? Loved them enough to keep them around. Maybe Turn-In Taxis? No, Turn Taxis is perfect. It doesn't need any changing. It doesn't need any updating. Tobago. Oh man, Tobago. I know it just got an expansion, which I'd really like to play too. Tobago had that weird thing about Jeep hopping, and I would like to see, it's great. It was a wonderful little, I would like to see a deeper, richer Tobago, because so much of that game was so brilliant. I guess the closest to that would be Akrotiri, kind of is the heir apparent to Tobago. But yeah, I would love to see a modern Tobago 2, that really takes it to the next level. That is the first one of all of these that really jumps out at me. And it's not a slight on Tobago at all. Tobago was great. But okay, that was some. And let's come back to me. And Prague Regni considered multi-use rondel. Is it? Is it? Oh my gosh, you're right, Ari. It's not a traditional rondel because you don't have a piece that you move. But you do still. The most important thing of rondel of, okay, the next 3 things are cheap and then they get more expensive. But that just shows how amazing it is. Take it to the next level. Man, all right. Good job. Good job, sir. Always rondel building, like deck building would be cool. Is there a game? Yeah, somebody mentioned Crusaders has, you can change and update, and the rondel is dynamic. Multi-use cards, innovation breaks my brain. All right. Okay. Any news for that fellow guy photographer? Tim, yeah. Tim and I, we talked. We thought it'd be a great idea for him to start doing roundups. We did a top 10. We had a great time. I thought we got along great. He did a fort roundup, and I was really happy with it. I gave him a bunch of feedback. He started working on a second one. I can't remember even what it is now that he started working on. It was like a game he really loved. I think it was like whatever his number 1 game was from when we did the top 10. And he got a little ways into it and realized, I don't know if I enjoy doing this. This is hard. At least that's kind of the impression I got. And so, he got a little ways in where there's a little bit of feedback back and forth. He said, hey, you know what, Rahdo? I think on second thought, maybe this isn't the best thing for me and I should just stick to doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay, Tim, I still love you. I still love what you're doing. What Rahdo runs through is a tricky thing to do. And you keep on doing, Tim Chewin, everybody should go check him out. His YouTube channel is just Tim Chewin. Or do a search for Rahdo top 10 combat mechanisms and you'll find him. He does so much beautiful stuff. And, I just think, my style of filming wasn't a good fit for him. And that's cool. Not everything works for everybody. I am in the process of working with somebody else to see if they can take on that mantle, and a few other people as well. Fingers crossed. All right, have I ever played Twilight Struggle? In our early days, we had Twilight Struggle. I learned Twilight Struggle. I set up Twilight Struggle. I got halfway through teaching Jen how to play Twilight Struggle when she said, yeah, you can stop right there. I'm a pass. And we never played Twilight Struggle, and I got rid of it. Imperium Legends. It looks really good, but I think it has too much PvP for me. Space Alert, Dungeon Lords. Oh, that'd be nice. Marvel Champions expansions. I love Miss Marvel. I love Green Goblin. And I specifically loved the Taskmaster in Rise of Red Skull. Though, off the top of my head, I should think about it more, but that's my gut, or my 3 favorite things. And what do all of those have in common? All of them focus on the alter ego side of being a superhero, which is to me what makes Marvel Champions so special. All right, and most of the stuff just kind of ignores that, which makes me very sad. Will I do a top 10 rage-inducing games? Probably not. I don't tend to do I like to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, and don't go with Mr. In-Between. That's me. What is my most rage-inducing game? Am I planning to do a top list? Oh, Black Lotus. You tried to trick me by asking a second time. No, and I don't know. We don't. If Jen and I are unhappy, we just will stop playing, and then we'll promptly forget about it and move on with our lives. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that. Alrighty, DTD. I don't see a question mark in there. Oh no, there is. How do I introduce friends with very casual approach to board games to heavier games? I don't introduce friends to games very much. I have had some experience with it, but it was mostly coworkers. Like the trickiest thing is I taught Jen Martell, a very, very talented animator who had no experience with modern board games, and she saw me filming Dungeon Pets for a run through, and she said, "Hey, I want to play that sometime. It looks adorable," because she had a really great cartoony art style. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be tough. But we got through it, and she had a great time. The hardest thing I found with that, and the most important thing, is pick a game that does not have hidden information. And of course, Dungeon Pets has a lot of hidden information, so it's really tough. Because if it's all out in the open, then it just becomes a lot easier for you to, I'm forgetting about my game, I don't even care, maybe I'm not even going to play. I'm just going to be a referee and help everybody else with their game by reminding them of, stuff and just trying to ease them in. That would kind of be my inclination. Troyes, is it a multi-use rondelle? Troyes dice? Kind of, but not really in the way I was thinking. But yeah, maybe I have to go back and come up with a different combination. Alrighty. Yes, I still love Welcome to Walnut Grove. I'd love to play it right now. Is that a multi-use rondelle? The town is a rondelle in Walnut Grove, isn't it? But no. I think all the town spots just have one use. Favorite solo game would be Marvel Champions. But mostly it's less the design and more the theme. My wife will only play games that are in my top 100. Maybe I could put some of those sexy games for couples in a top 100. I'll look into it, Matt, but don't hold your breath. Alrighty, but good luck, buddy. Alright, I've played Kolieka since I reviewed it. No, I did not. If I recall correctly, I think I gave it as a gift to a coworker of mine who was from Poland, because she was too young to remember it, but she remembered her parents talking about the stories. I think Barbara ended up getting that copy. Maybe. It's so long. It's all a blur. Have I tried Tricarion? Yes, I've done a run-through for Tricarion. Would probably be a rondelle game. Yeah, it's... yeah, or we talked about that earlier. Any room left for board game content creators? Is it worth starting in 2021? I would say so, only because, the prolific growth of board game content creators is more than matched by the growth of board game newbies to the industry. And I don't think it's a good idea to start out and just trying to copy the format that Tom Nicholson started, over a decade ago, and that Tom Vassell made famous. And, don't start out and do that. The world has enough of that. You've got to find something else. But I refuse to believe there aren't still cool new ways to approach board game media content. Alrighty, and that's it. I am caught up. I am hiding. Let's see if I can. Boom! We are done chatting. And this, I'm going to check one more time. I think this was pretty successful. Yep, if everything's still going. Yep, it is. So, folks, thanks very much for showing up. My next step is going to be doing a live stream of an update to my top 10 games of 2020. Because, spoiler alert, 5 new games have found their way in, and 5 games have sadly fallen out of the original top 10 I did back on Christmas Day. So, I'll probably do that next week. I'll probably do it like this, as a live stream on all 3 platforms, and with some more Q&A. And then after that, I'll probably do my end of the month roundup. And then in the month of June, fingers crossed, I might have some additional content. We'll see how it goes. But thanks everybody for showing up. I am now going to bid you all adieu. So talk to you later. So long and bye-bye. I am failing on the leaving. I will try again. Talk to you later. So long. Bye-bye.